Meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Boom. Meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Boom.
You were the one who sent me that really nice email, right? Was that you?
Live streamed. Got it.
About the custodians?
Boom.
Yeah, thank you for that. That really means a lot.
It's just part of American Education Week. Trying to recognize.
Well,
Support staff and things as well.
it's really nice that they get recognized.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we got some gift cards on the way.
That's terrific.
Man, look who's here tonight. How you doing, sir?
Okay, perfect. Good, good.
I'm doing fine. All right. Must not be a fishing season. You must have got your dough.
This was
Buck,
just
you got
also
buck this year?
attached,
Good.
so I didn't know that this-
Yeah, let's see.
Okay.
Let me see that.
It's all good, right? I got a little time to do some, tie some flies, get your fishing stuff in.
Oh, it looks like he's got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He went to one before.
Anything you can change?
That's what I want. Then you got grandkids take out fish and show them how to do all that, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
I got a grandson that said, Grandpa, we go fishing. We go down to the banks of the Gasconade River.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, it's nice. Sometimes we even catch a fish or two. Well, you notice how far you can throw some rocks in the water too, you know? Throw some rocks in the water and catch it. Right up there. How about them rocks? Glad you could be here. Sorry, there's nothing better on TV. How you doing, young lady? Oh, just. Kind of just a little recently. Probably the hair off the dog, right? Glad you could be here. Sorry, there's nothing better on TV.
Just for the record, I want to let everybody know the live stream is active right now.
That's not gonna
We
do
have
it.
board members joining us, so just for the
That
record.
feels great.
It's active and you can hear everything we say. Which they can still hear what we say now.
No.
what I'm saying.
Don't.
Sir?
I don't know.
What is that? Two monitors?
We got two channels. We got four in the ballot.
Oh, I know, they was so much money.
They're really good. Let's see where they're coming from.
That is cool. No, I want one.
Doesn't really matter to me. I guess I already, I'm a little biased. I already know who I'm gonna vote for.
Another one.
Daughter?
I got you a tuner.
There you go.
I'm with the neck all day.
Is it not? Well, you know how, yeah, oh, yeah, when I had sunflower, when I always.
They just signed a contract on that.
We were like, awesome.
Yeah.
And then- Let's plug that in, but it doesn't plug in. Use it, or you can like pull it away, and if you have it this way, you can actually flip it around where other people can see your screen. You can do it like that.
But
What is that?
Point is
They have
important
one
there,
that
but
just slides out.
serious subject going on.
I've only got it, but really nice.
I don't want to use other ones.
Very well. Very well. Great to see you.
Oh, you can have it. I already looked at it all. I already know what I'm gonna do.
I take full time.
Why'd they come in so high?
I've done that where I think I have.
My daughter's just.
Is that funny? Just more than what we thought.
More than what we thought. Well, there's a lot of
Some
work.
of that's in bad shape, man.
Well, and the pictures don't do it justice.
I know, I walked around every building.
Especially, hey, I know you spent a lot of time.
Well, they can't boot her.
Uh-huh, yeah.
The whole front side of Booter up there is about crumbling.
Yeah. And that doesn't even include that big wall, because that's gonna be part of another project with, so that,
Really?
I'm telling you, man, I mean, it's been deferred for so long, and I'll mention that. Been deferred for so
Well, that
long.
hasn't been touched since I know.
Exactly, who knows how, I mean, except for, little bits and pieces here and there, no, it doesn't work, it's gonna get it back where it needs to be. And then I'm gonna, I am creating, rotating, thing like you're supposed to, it's just like, this year we're gonna do ceiling and this, so that way it doesn't come down to all at once.
That's a shame, even the front steps of the high school.
Right.
I mean, those are.
Right, that needs to be, we're not redoing it, but it needs to be repaired.
Ripped out.
I mean, that, sense of that, but at least, do some repairs so it's.
So will we have enough money to do this?
Yeah, we'll have money, because we want to do some at each school with the air conditioning. So that, but there'll be enough in there to still do what we need to do. There's, some schools require a whole lot more than others. Some schools don't have enough. Other schools gotta take some. I just think that if we don't do it now, when we
I'll tell you what.
We won't be able to fix it.
That's pretty impressive. Exactly, so.
So.
Yeah, there's some areas where it's like, holy smokes. We're just like, if it wasn't approved, it's just like, there would have to be some project, no matter what, still have to be done, that I had to work at. Which is fine. That's what we do.
I want that. We're good.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan, Stan. But I do wish we would have gotten the bidders. But and we went out early,
I know we handed out what,
8 requests.
Go ahead,
Because we got it in early December. Hoping those would go the next summer.
It's very- Yeah, I know. So, yeah, it's Leslie.
Last year we only had that one.
I saw that email.
The biggest ones have already been gobbled up.
So just let them know. Don't even forward it to my page.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I didn't really read it. I don't know.
It's big. It's big. Yeah.
You need me calling.
I'm telling you, I walked every building with our architect.
That's
Some buildings we walked twice.
great minds think alike, right?
It's like, you know, it's like, gotta do it. Just have to do this.
Well, we're just gonna have to get used to moving in the future. There's not gonna be as many companies.
That's my.
Uh,
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah.
I agree. There's not gonna be as many companies, there's not gonna have that many people doing that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Either that or you have to get on board a year or more.
When I have a student, I have a 20-year-old student that is just his job, full time, making $31 an hour without a minute of experience. $31 an hour.
Always and forever.
How are you doing?
Started saving up, I was gonna go 45.
Starting to settle back in.
Yeah, I was.
That's basically it.
How are you? Sir, how are you?
Okay, so
We were here on.
Bruce, I wouldn't realize you're the other. I know.
You all got it going on.
Next time.
Yeah, I think.
Remember the old Sesame Street or what they
Not like the other. Get her to go to school tonight.
I was going down. Did you go down there? Yes. To Jesse's. Yeah. Oh,
Okay, sounds good.
So,
Yeah. Take care of it. You know, so make sure you do the
things been going well, Chief?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Counting down the days, are you?
4 months. 35 years. I mean.
Are you guys planning on Scott moving into your
Yeah.
position? Is that what's gonna happen? So that's
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
All right.
Well, that's a good time.
Yeah.
Feel a little extra pressure tonight to do on the rest of the broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Doug. No hockey games tonight, right?
I was at Christmas break, New Year's. I know, it never is. Never is. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah, everybody staying healthy, so can't complain there. Where's she at? Okay. Yeah. Right. I was gonna say, if it's full, what did they do? Oh, wow. Yeah, for sure.
And it's, well, they bring you.
Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to Ritenour School Board meeting this evening at 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And also would like to move to 1.02 declaration of a quorum.
Nobody excused.
They're all online. They are online. We still need to excuse our three, but we also,
All three?
yes. And so I'll kind of word it. We need a motion to excuse Kennedy Garden, Russell Greco, and Lisa Glover Jones. They will be attending virtually.
So moved.
All good. Dr. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez Nova? Yes. Mrs. Bonus? And I vote yes. Moving to 1.03, adoption of the agenda.
Move we adopt the agenda as presented?
Second. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonus? Yes. Ms. Enriquez Nova? Yes. And I also vote yes. Moving on to 1.04, school of the month. Or nope. Nope, not that one. Okay, we have Marion Elementary School and the International Welcome Center here for the school of the month for January. And then I'd like to move to 1.05, pledge of allegiance, and welcome our Marion kiddos up here to join us in the pledge of allegiance.
Following the theme for tonight, our kids are going to say the pledge of allegiance in English, and then it's that.
Oh.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yo prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Also.
I'm Lisa Broadbent. I'm the assistant principal at Marion Elementary. We are so excited to be here tonight to talk to you about our bilingual program. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and read our mission and our vision, and then we're going to hand the microphone over to our guests of honor tonight. So the vision in Ritenour School District is Ritenour School District, in partnership with parents and community, will develop leaders recognized for academic excellence and produce graduates who will become productive citizens and lead lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. Our mission statement is, the mission of Ritenour School District is to ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success in our diverse global society. Right now, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Ewing.
Good evening, Mr. Ewing, principal, proud principal of Marion Elementary School. Our equity statement: we will treat parents, students, staff, and families, folks with special needs, guests with dignity and respect by valuing individual perspectives and cultural diversity. Students will see themselves, their culture represented through Marion Elementary School curriculum, discussion, visuals, etc. We talk a lot about the diversity in Ritenour, and we love it. It's the thing that drew me to the district. And we've always been diverse in many different ways. But one thing we talked a lot about lately is if you have someone come to your house, no matter how beautiful the house is and how beautiful the accommodations, how beautiful the room they sleep, the place they're sleeping is, if they don't have their own room, they're just guests. And we want our families to all feel a sense of ownership. And one of the ways we've moved in that direction this year is by piloting a bilingual classroom. Jerry Ross, second grade teacher, brought the idea to us last spring, and it has developed into something that she's going to share with you about tonight. She's going to introduce you to our three wonderful second graders, and with no further hesitation, Ms. Ross.
Thank you so much. I'm here joined by Giselle Duran Contreras, Jerry Urbina Morales, and Elvin Morales, and we will be talking to you today about our bilingual program. Being bilingual is superpower. It is a superpower. Being bilingual allows students to grow and strengthen their brains, improve students' academic success, open students' hearts and minds to different cultures and communities across the world, and prepare students for success as global citizens. Mejor dicho, ser bilingüe es superpoder. Okay. Over a decade of research now shows that the research-driven best practice for supporting English language learners who all share the same native language is a bilingual classroom. This is because of language transference, which allows students to use skills and knowledge they acquire in one language in another. Research shows that students who learn to read in their native language do just as well, if not better, on English language reading assessments than their monolingual peers. Being bilingual is superpower. Marion recognized it and followed research-driven best practices this year by starting a bilingual model classroom, a classroom where students can proudly say, ser bilingüe es superpoder. We are so proud to report today the astounding and rapid progress our bilingual classroom has made over the last 4 months. At the beginning of the year, you can see on the left our reading development scores in English. At the beginning of the year, 85% of our class was reading a year or more behind grade level. Using biliteracy instruction, we expedited the reading growth in both languages. In the past 4 months, they have all made incredible progress, as you can see. Over 30% of the class has made more than a year's progress in just the past 4 months, and 20% are now reading at grade level. On the right, you can see our math growth. In math, we have also seen amazing growth. At the beginning of the year, as you can see in red, all students scored below basic, but during the first 4 months, we have scored yellow basic and green proficient. In December alone, 32 students scored in the proficient range and 74% scored between proficient and basic. Between October and December of this year, there was a 25-point percentage growth class-wide in their math skills. Being bilingual is superpower. Yep. And those numbers don't say it enough. Being bilingual is a superpower for so many more reasons than their reading and math abilities, and that's why I am so happy and proud to present these 3 bilingual students from Marion Elementary who will tell us the true power of being bilingual. Our first reader is Elvin Morales, who will be reading to us about bilingual friends.
Ms. Ross, can you have him face the board, please?
When I grow up, when I grow up, I want to teach kids to be bilingual. When I was in kindergarten, I did not speak English, and a kid helped me to speak English. Then, in first grade, a new student came and also did not speak English, but I showed him how. And I asked him, "Do you want to be my friend?" And he said yes. Then we played recess the whole time. Now in second grade, I know where he lived and play in his house. We are great bilingual friends.
Very great job, Elvin Morales. And if you are curious to meet Elvin Morales' friend from first grade, here is Jerry Urbina Morales reading about When I Grow Up.
When I grow up, being bilingual will help me be a doctor. I became bilingual when I was in first grade. A friend helped me and my cousin helped me too. And 1 year I speak English already. Being bilingual helps me because I can read better books and speak better. I help translate for mom at the store. I can help translate for people as a bilingual doctor.
And just, Mrs. Broadbent and I met Jerry 18 months ago, and he didn't speak any English, none. And so now he's reading English.
Our last reader is Giselle Duran Contreras, who will read Teaching Others.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher because I want to teach others and have them teach others. In Miss Cross's class, someone taught me to be bilingual. Being bilingual helps me understand English and Spanish, so I can understand my teacher when she is speaking English or Spanish. Also, I can understand my family and my brother and my sister. I love being bilingual. Being bilingual, I love to teach others. The person that helped always told me to teach others.
Right. You did a great job. Thank you all for having us.
So time for a couple of questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Board members, questions for Ms. Ross or the students or the team at Marion?
Just to point something out. If you want to be a teacher, or already achieved that goal because you're teaching a lot of people in your classroom how to be bilingual. This is an awesome thing. This is what we want. This is the foundation that we can build on. Because now we have our youngest citizens bringing a new facet to our society. This is important to do as we become a globalized country in a world society like that. Being bilingual is a superpower. It'll open doors to you guys that they might not have been open to before. And I congratulate each and every one of you and thank the staff here for going with this and trusting the teachers' instinct on how this can help out. It's incredible. I'm glad that we witnessing
question for Alvin, Jerry, and Isabella. What is your favorite English word and what is your favorite Spanish word?
English or Spanish word? I like Spanish because I can talk with my friends or my family.
That's wonderful. What's your favorite word of all though, out of all the Spanish words? Bilingual? I use Spanish. That's beautiful. I love that. How about who else wants to get their favorite?
English word is
There's so many words. Yeah. It's like your favorite food or your favorite. Yeah. Mine is churros.
It's bilingual.
Okay, superpower. Okay, my favorite animal is owls. What's your favorite word?
Bilingual.
Awesome.
So I just want to say that I'm super proud of you. Les quiero decir que estoy muy orgullosa de ustedes. Y ser bilingüe sí es un superpoder. Pueden hacer lo que sea, no importa qué, cualquier meta que quieran hacer, el goal that you have. No tienes, estoy tan orgullosa de ustedes. Muy bien. So this is the first year that you guys are doing this. What are we doing for next year? Is there a plan in place for Kirker?
So we're working on it. We have identified that the best place to use the bilingual approach is in the early grades, the primary grades. We're trying to work out the logistics and the specifics. It just so happened that this year, our largest group with our largest Spanish-speaking population just happened to be rising second graders, and was also a second grade teacher, and it was going from 4 sections to 5 because it was a large group and we were going to need an extra second grade teacher anyway. So it's the perfect opportunity to add this. And so we're thinking about next year, how we can get the most leverage. Our rising kindergarten group is actually, we have the largest Spanish speaking population. We have 25% Spanish speaking, not Latino, that's the margin number, but Spanish speaking is 25%. And so our kindergarten cohort is rising, our rising first graders is over 40%. And so that's a time when obviously kids are learning, they're learning both languages, their brains developing, it's the perfect time to do that. So we're trying to figure out logistically how to make that work in the best way possible. But we know that it's going to work.
We also have really thought a lot about integration this year because we wanted to make sure that the students in the bilingual classroom had access to all of the other students as well, so that the next year when they go out into the next grade level, they'll get to know the students still. So currently they go to specials in groups of 4 with groups of 3 with the other classes, and then they also sit at the lunch tables with the other classes. So that way when they're in 3rd grade next year, they already know the students and they're more acclimated.
We were really concerned about, we didn't want to create a situation where the kids were segregated. And like I said, not all the Spanish speaking kids are in the class, but we identified them by access scores and we picked kids who had the largest opportunity to grow. And as you saw in the numbers, they're not only making huge growth, but they're outperforming their English speaking peers. They're outperforming other EL students in other classes. So we can see at every level the amount of growth. And like I said, you all have an open invitation. Obviously, we'd love to have you around the school. We love Marion, we love to show it off, but you need to come and see the classroom in action, because as much as we saw here with the kids and with the data, it's nothing compared to seeing the classroom in action. The classroom community is amazing, but there's actually different points in the day where they transition from English immersion to Spanish immersion. There's an entire ritual that goes along with that. We thought about showing you all that, we just don't have time, but you definitely want to come and see it.
So board members, this is the pilot, right? So this is the first bilingual pilot that we're running here in the district. And Ms. Ross's leadership, I remember when I met Ms. Ross at WashU. How long ago was that, Ms. Ross?
4 years ago.
4 years ago, when I was guest lecturing at WashU, I met Ms. Ross when she was the president of her Educational Honor Society, and just always opened the door to the Ritenour School District, and I'm so happy that you took advantage of the opportunity to come be a part of this community. So thank you for your work, Ms. Ross, that you're doing, Ms. Ross, and you're doing great work. Really, you're blazing the trail, I believe, for what will be the beginning of number 5 classroom. And thank you most importantly to the students.
Just to take aside, put aside, Ms. Ross is already working with Wyland Elementary School and talking to a bilingual teacher there who's very interested. And she and Dr. Greenstein are planning to visit Marion to watch the class in action and try to create something similar at Wyland. Again, Ms. Ross's leadership. So we're very, very happy to have her. And of course, our kids are wonderful. So.
Thank you all.
Right now, I'd like to also recognize the parents of the kiddos that came here to represent Marion. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. Next, I believe we're going to be listening to the International Welcome Center. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for offering us the opportunity to speak to you about the International Welcome School. Before I begin our presentation, I'll read our mission statement. As a district, the mission of Ritenour School District is to ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success in our diverse global society. And our vision, Ritenour School District, in partnership with parents and community, will develop leaders recognized for academic excellence and produce graduates who will become productive citizens and lead lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. And before I get into the portion of the equity statement that we would like to focus on tonight, I'd like to introduce the students that are benefiting from the equity provided by the district. And our speakers tonight, who will hopefully do the bulk of the presentation, are Osmary and Carlos. Osmary is a high school student at the International Welcome Center, and Carlos is a middle school student. And part of our success story is the social emotional health professional, one of our therapists, Martha Quinones. So when we look at the equity statement, I'll run through a commitment to building positive, purposeful relationships with every student and every family so that barriers to learning at high levels are removed. Diversity among Ritenour families and staff is valued, sought, and embraced. Student backgrounds, racial, ethnic, religious, gender, class, traumatic experiences do not limit teacher expectations on student outcomes. So the last sentence is really what I plan to focus on, and I hope comes through our presentation, is that resources are allocated so that every student gets what they need. And at the International Welcome Center, we have had a growth in our social emotional team and our focus on social emotional wellness. So as we go through this, I've already started my introduction. First, I think there's been a change of plans. I think Osmary is going to go first. Then Carlos will explain to you their experience with our social emotional team. And Rosemary is going to speak a little bit about the group therapy sessions that we're running. And then Carlos is going to explain a little bit about how the targeted counseling lessons have contributed to his experience. Before we get into that, just in case you're not familiar with the International Welcome Center, it's a program of 74 students and growing from grades 6 to 12. Their students focused on intensive English language and scholastic development to prepare for the demands of Ritenour High School, Ritenour Middle School, or Hague Middle School. And as I mentioned before, we have a more robust social emotional support network than we have had in previous years. And before I turn it over to Carlos and Rosemary, I would like to say that a fair amount of what I have to report about the success is anecdotal. However, we've made it to this point in the year without having any office referrals. And I can say, and I don't want to overlap on what they might say too much, the way that we can speak to students and have them take our perspectives has really improved. And I think that that's down to the quality of everyone working together, but also them officially, formally being taught how to handle doing that. So I'll let Rosemary, and these are facts about Rosemary. You don't need to read those to everybody unless you'd like to, but she's prepared a statement.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the invitation. Tonight I am going to talk about Miss Bilingual. She's a great transcript. It is wonderful to have her at the IWC because if we have any problems, we can talk to her and she will listen to us. We can also have a goal of two. There are some groups in which I am included. The groups are Miss Piñones, Mr. Horvath, and other students. It is important to be in this group because there I am learning more about myself and how to communicate with other people in English and Spanish. The group gives mental support, but Miss Piñones also gives material support, for example, bottles of water, books, clothes, food, and she also helps our family with other needs. It is good to have people with different backgrounds because we can learn from them and they can learn from us. Thank you for this support.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you tonight. I am going to tell you about Mr. Howard's class and how it helps me and the other students at the IWC. In Mr. Howard's class, we learn about emotions, jobs, and how to relax our mind to be more focused in class. Mr. Howard helps us learn about what jobs want in the future. He also helps us finish work we don't understand from our other classes. I really like this class because it's helped me concentrate on my work and prepare me for the future.
I promise we didn't coach them, even though we were named specifically. So, yeah, you were, sorry. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this social emotional health and how we've integrated it into the team. So I, by trade, am a mental health therapist, and Mr. Hobart, who was also mentioned, is their bilingual counselor. So through lessons that he has been able to have, you can see some of the listed, is just things that he's talked about with the students, like mindfulness, community building, sleep lessons, which were very important. We forget that sometimes you need to talk to kids about sleep and how that impacts the brain. But as a staff as well, having bilingual co-workers has been great to talk about how to move the students forward. I think sometimes we often forget, and I even forget as an individual who's bilingual and grew up knowing both languages, that sometimes we process in native languages. And when we're talking to kids and taking into account culture in different ways, like Mr. Mayberry was saying, we haven't had disciplinary issues. And I think a lot of that is due to us respecting their culture and talking to them through the cultural lens of the community. So I think a lot of Latinos are more community oriented and talking to the students about mask wearing and COVID protocols and how that protects their families at home has really made a huge impact to how they behave at school and they treat those mandates. But yeah, just a brief lapse of our social emotional program at the IWC.
I'd like to just very briefly point out some artifacts and how things move along. If you have access to this on your own presentations, these are presentations of students that have been, or not presentations, sorry, paragraphs written by students that have been with us for more or less 4 months. And then this would be somebody who has been with us for more like 15, 16 months. So the production level really increases. And these are both paragraphs about experience at the IWC. And we picked the positive ones, so it's a little self-congratulatory. I don't want to read them out loud. But I thought maybe there was a link that I should have had. Well, one of the projects that students did early in the year with one of the teachers is to make a dodecahedron, where linguistically it was to practice speaking about themselves in the first person, but it also gave that teacher time to have authentic conversations about what they were putting on each side of the dodecahedron to understand their culture and manufacture some authentic conversations. So I really would encourage you to ask questions of Carlos and Rosemary. They were a little nervous reading, but they have really good insights. And if they're nervous, Martha is here to help translate them.
What's your favorite part? What's your favorite part of the day? Something that you look forward to? ¿Qué te emociona si dices, wow, no me gusta ese paso? Lo que sea, es que
Mr. Mayberry's class, because after that we go to lunch. She likes Miss Wallace's class because they're able to learn about important figures from Latin America, but also this country, and to see the impact that they've had on the world.
So, Arthur, Carlos, how long have you been at the IWC? 1 year and 5 months. 2 years. Thank you.
So I have a question. You both had on there that you like soccer. Does Mayberry tell you that too? Are you guys doing it? I have a couple of kids that can help negotiate. You like soccer too, I saw. So he'll be hitting you up next fall.
So, Mr. Mayberry, have you seen, I know what registration has looked like downstairs. Are you seeing a number of new students coming into the IWC?
Yes, we have been, so when I created the slideshow, we were at 74 students, but we've lost some students and gained some. So unique individuals, we've had I don't know, 90 plus, but we're still at 74. So, but we have seen enrollment, but we've also seen kids moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
Board members, if you remember 5 years ago, when we started the IWC, we started with 12 students in the program. So from 12 students, we went through a period of a couple of years where the enrollment was a bit stagnant, but I know the last couple of years it's really jumped up. And it's a credit to the great experiences that students are having in the program. So I so appreciate your teacher leadership. So appreciate the fact that we've got some additional mental health supports for students. And I so appreciate the fact that the students that come to the IWC, the attendance rate at the IWC is the highest rate in the district. So kids are present every day, they're learning and growing every day. And it's a result of a culture that's created within us. Thanks to the teachers, thanks to Ms. Hahn also, who's been a real source of leadership.
So about how many people are moving out to the high school, and then they move into high school, are you sharing the social emotional stuff, information with them, so that way when they go, they still have that support?
Yeah, so thankfully my position is all secondary ed, so I'm able to follow them as long as they're moving forward and provide that support and also be someone that they know in the building. So recently we're moving one of our students over. His name is Joseph, and he will be moving next week, the next semester, but we were able to take him on tours, Mr. Bayberry, separately, as long we were able to go through the school day and kind of just find the support for them at the school, to have like some older students, EL students, talk to him, walk him through the day. But yeah, the social emotional support stays with them. We have a new position as well as a transition specialist that's at the high school, who also helps guide them once they're at the high school and getting acquainted.
Having a great experiment like this come to life and grow and become ingrained in our district is a wonderful thing. I would love to be on this board when I hear that we need to move you guys somewhere, because you're busting at the seams where you're at right now. I would love to hear that. I think it's a beacon for the county to attract people here that need help and need the type of things that you guys do for these young people, and it's awesome. You give them opportunities, and it gives our community a facet of their cultures and things that we don't have. And it enriches all of us. It makes us all better. And I'm glad you guys are here. It's awesome. It's incredible. And but I think whatever we need to do, whatever we can do to help out, you guys can see there right now.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And I also want to take an opportunity to recognize parents as well. Thank you so much. Let's give everybody a round of applause. One point oh six, report of closed session. I'm reporting that the Board of Education met in closed session on December 2nd, 4th, and 9th, 2021 for the purpose of a discussion of personnel and business items. Moving to 1.07, public comments. The board invites citizens, staff, and students to attend its meetings in order to become better acquainted with the schools, so that the board may have a formal opportunity to hear the concerns, requests, and suggestions of members of the Ritenour school community. Public comments are normally scheduled at all regular business meetings of education meetings. No more than 30 minutes is normally allotted for public comments and 5 minutes per person. So I do have one already here. Get everyone started. Christina Melly and Eric Humphrey.
Good evening, board members, community members, administrators, everyone elsewhere. Mr. Hopper was listed as my insurance policy. Having a 2-year-old at home does not always mean you get out the door precisely when you intend to. But we made it close enough to the correct time. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. So as you've heard, and as many already know, my name is Christina Andrade Melli. I'm speaking to you this evening as a Ritenour graduate, as the sibling of an entire family of Ritenour residents at this exact moment, a teacher in the district, and also as the president of the Ritenour National Education Association, which is our teacher and our educator representative union in the district. And I want to begin tonight with what all of us listening have in common. And that is that we want our students learning in schools that are safe. No one would agree with that. We want our staff working in schools that are safe. Especially now, we recognize how important it is to keep the quality people that we have. We also want our community to know what to expect from our district. There's so much uncertainty, which leads to so much anxiety and upset and disruption in our lives. It's critical, especially now that people know that we're going to be stable and we're going to be here. So because we want those same things, I know that we're in a position, we're in a time that there's a lot of anxiety and fear and concern that makes us sometimes lash out. But I hope that we can return to that place where we agree that these are the things we need for our families and our communities. And I'm asking the board tonight to continue a return to learning plan that includes some data-based thresholds for masking. This is the plan that Dr. Kilbride will present to you later on this evening. To understand why I'm asking for that vote, I wanted to share the current experiences of staff and students in the district. We've been back for 2 weeks. It's not a surprise to anyone that the current COVID surge has made our lives all challenging. We're at 38% positivity in St. Louis County, averaged over the last 7 days, which is a very different place than we were the last time we met as a board. It's straining staff in our buildings, in our county, and in our nation. And I'm really proud to say that your teachers are rising to meet the moment. And not just your teachers, but your educators. Things that I have seen with my own eyes. I've seen elementary school teachers splitting classes of absent colleagues, taking 4 or 5 students from different grade levels that they do not teach, and somehow finding a way to make it through the day and still give quality instruction to all those students. I've seen reading, math, and English language interventionists being pulled to cover whole classes and having to find time to catch up with their students who need extra support. I've seen high school teachers taking on extra classes to cover long-term absences, and I know of one who has not had a single planned period since Thanksgiving because of the sacrifice she has chosen to make for our kids. I've seen your superintendent teach first grade. I've seen your CFO substitute in classrooms. I've seen your communications director or your human resources director leading business classes at RHS, and I believe the communications director was in a building as well. I've seen your office staff supporting other buildings. And so I say all that to point out that the adults in this community are rising up to take care of our kids. But also to point out that that's coming at a tremendous cost. These are examples of things you can see every day. We are taking care of each other and we're taking care of our kids, but we are stretched as thin as we can go. I know that our student and our family experiences have also been very challenging. There's significant stress on our Ritenour families. Since returning from winter break, I've received at least 2 messages every day from students whose families are dealing with COVID, whether positive cases themselves, quarantines, family members in hospitals. Along with many of us, they've been searching for tests that are hard to find, waiting in long drive-up testing lines, and spending much of their hard-earned money on rapid tests. I was very lucky. We had a brush with COVID. My family, over this break, we've spent $300 on tests in 2 weeks. That's not a sacrifice that I can ask or that I feel that we can ask our families to make. I know that they are free, but free and available are different things. So because of these sacrifices your staff is making, the sacrifices your families are making, I'm asking for you to keep tools in our toolbox. I know that you will hear from folks who very much want masking to end, who are finished, who very much want the pandemic to be done, but it's not done with us. and to make sure that we're not stretching our families and we're not stretching our staff further than they can break. I'd just like to speak for the majority, the 64.6% of respondents and our staff and our families of the district who are in favor of masks. Thank you.
Can I speak? I didn't say anything. And I'll give you one. I'll sign one. I just want to read a letter that I got tonight. Okay. And I just want to read a letter that I got today. I didn't have time to write up something, but you know, since Mrs. Neely had something to say, I think I just want to respond to that. I know that yeah, her opinion of the stretching of our district and the stretching and all that wonderful, I mean, things that she said, this is so horrible what we're putting our kids and our staff through. I just feel like I just need to say something. Yeah, it's exactly the point that I'm making. We need to get beyond this. I don't think COVID is just going to go away and we're all going to get back to normal unless we take a stand and do something. So I got this letter today and I'm just going to share it with you. And it says, okay, so because you are on my board appropriately concerned about the health and the well-being of our students, I want to encourage you to consider the adverse effects that these various mitigation efforts are having on them. I mean, we're almost at 2-year mark here with COVID, and we know more about the impacts of this mask mandates and these vaccine effectiveness and the social distancing, this quarantine procedures, and they're not all rosy things. We've heard like from the Academy of Pediatrics, there's a pressing concern of this epidemic of mental health problem that we're having. And I'm hoping that you've heard this too. I mean, kids are breaking down. There was that, okay, I'll keep going on this. You must revisit our COVID policies, please, and start bringing our students back together and immediately begin to recreate our community. We've been separated for far too long. This is not going away, so we need to balance the realities of our children's experiences in the school setting more efficiently. We need to move away from the constant focus on COVID and just bring it back to education. It's blessed to hear what the International Welcome Center is doing. It's awesome. We can get back to that normalcy. Okay, so Ritenour, I assume we're still quarantining asymptomatic students because that's the policy. And go there. Okay, so, and you know that in Jeff City, we had this case a couple of months ago that came through saying that children may not be excluded from schools in Missouri. And more importantly, there are no laws requiring that schools impose these types of masking and quarantining things. There's no government body that can monitor or enforce these behaviors. There's nobody going to come after you because you're allowing our students to just breathe and smile at each other and see each other and look at each other's eyes. We all look like little robots behind our masks. You can't even see if the kid's having a problem or not. So respectfully, I'm just asking that you, my board, our school leaders can implement mask optional policies and avoid the harmful punishment that is related to masking that's currently being imposed on our children and our teachers. So please be aware that this does violate, please be aware that it violates the equal protection law in Missouri Constitution, in addition to having separate treatments and policies for individuals based on vaccine status as well. Okay, so I expect your adherence to the existing laws. Numerous schools in the areas have revised their policies this month, and several, especially in the St. Charles County area, have remained mask and vaccine optional throughout the pandemic without a spike in cases. So it's time for school leaders to revisit their policies and allow families to make decisions for their own children in a way that ensures the physical and mental health of each child. I know we can't please everybody, but it's time to move on.
Since I don't have any more forms, that can move into public comment. Thank you very much, everyone, for all of your comments. Very important for our community to be able to have that Moving on, we have our reports. Moving to the president's report, I'd like to ask Mr. Berry to please come up. I'm very happy to report that we have 6 mid-year graduates from our Husky Academy program. We had 3 students graduate from the Missouri Options Program and 3 graduates from the East Learning Center. Congratulations to our Missouri Option graduates, Miguel Fonte, Grace Pichon, and Jonathan Medina Lopez, and our ACE graduates, Luke Kimball, Javon Kendall, and Brendan Place.
So we asked Mr. Berry, who is the interim lead at the center, to come speak a bit about Husky Academy, talking about his experience and the great things that are going on.
Thank you for having me tonight to be able to speak on, especially on behalf of these students who have shown achievement and have graduated up to this point. It's really a celebration. We always talk about this all the time with those students, how excited we are and how we can't wait to celebrate with them. And actually, I know I gave six names, but we had another student that graduated this past week from ACE. And tomorrow we're going to be celebrating a 4th student out of Missouri Option who's taking their last test, and we are confident that going to graduate tomorrow. So all of these students, you know, have shown a really dedication to learning. I look back and think about my first experience as I began to work with some of these students and seeing them just break over barriers to get there. One particular, Luke Kimball, when he first started this year, he was walking an hour one way just to get to school, and just dedicated, you know. And we just began to celebrate just how well he began to just achieve. Another student that we have, he was very unsure about what this was going to look like for him. We finally were able to have him take his first test with the Missouri Option, the high set test. He gets finished with that test. He received a score. First thing he did was to call us at the center and just celebrate. He was so excited. But I think that's what these kids see. Sometimes they go into these programs and they're not really sure of what their full picture is going to look like. And so it's so great just to be able to see them achieve. We currently have in Missouri Option about 25 students. And I have a line of students that are begging to get into Missouri Option right now. And in ACE, we have currently about 40 students that participate in that program. So additionally too, as far as Missouri Option, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to meet Mr. Mayhem. Mr. Mayhem is the teacher for Missouri Option, and I just do not know a greater individual that is so kind and dedicated to those students. And it's really he's someone to really also be praised for this work, to see what these students have been able to do. So really do thank you for letting us be here tonight and celebrate those students.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Board members, just so you know, the attendance at Husky Academy this year is higher than it's been in the last 5 years. And so a number of students are at Husky Academy. This is their opportunity for right now to keep them learning and growing. And Mr. Berry and team have just done an absolutely fabulous job doing that, moving kids toward progressing towards the graduation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Up, the Ritenour Hall of Fame Committee is seeking nominations for the class of 2022 and its Lifetime Achievement Award. The deadline for submitting an application is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Nomination forms are available on the Ritenour website. The induction ceremony will take place during homecoming weekend next fall. The day will be announced this spring. Moving on to 2.02, the superintendent's report, Dr. Crystal.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. So board members, we are a district, one of our 3 strategic goals is 100% of our students graduating prepared for college and career. So I'm so happy to hear Mr. Berry's reported not only 6 but 8 students that have met expectations. We know that we've got opportunity for improvement in the graduation rate, and we're working on that. I'm happy to share news of 2 Ritenour High School seniors that have already gone early decision for Wash U here in St. Louis. Gabriela Rojo and Fortuna Kadima both received their acceptance letters early decision to Wash U and have finalized their plans after Ritenour High School. So Ms. Rojo is going to be pursuing biomedical sciences and will be transitioning into the PT, the physical therapy program, after she completes her 4 years of biomedical sciences at Wash U. She's active in NHS at the high school. She's captain of the drum line and band, vice president of the senior class, also active in the health occupations group, as well as Mu Alpha Theta. Fortuna plans to major in software engineering, also at Wash U. And board members, Washington University, an elite school, is getting more and more difficult to gain acceptance to Wash U. The acceptance rate at Wash U is about 11% of all applicants that apply. So very excited for our 2 Huskies that made it into Wash U. As a Husky, Fortuna has been very active on the RoboHounds. He's also a sprinter on the track team and also plays on the soccer team with Mr. Mayberry, who's the coach. So happy to share the great news of our 2 early decision students in college. They're going to college at Wash U. We're very proud of them. Just wanted to bring that to you.
Very nice.
2.03 Legislative Advocacy Committee report.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin. So board members, the next meeting of the LAC is a week from tomorrow, January 21st at 7:30 a.m. It's going to be a virtual meeting. We'll be talking about 3 of the key education bills, and I won't go into detail now because I think that Vanessa is going to be speaking on those bills in just a bit. 7:30 a.m. virtual. It's open to the community to hear about House Bill 1474, House Bill 1995. And we'll hear from our elected officials at that time. That concludes my report.
2.04 MSBA report. Dr. Brett Thomas.
Sure. We'll start out as we do with our board report from Brett. Who wants to start?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of January. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the food supply chain crisis that continues to plague school food service programs in Missouri and throughout the nation. Due largely to staffing shortages, a number of food distributors have reduced or eliminated service to school districts this year, significantly impacting the availability of food items. The situation is resulting in smaller menus and fewer food options for students. Jenna Knuth is the Director of Food and Nutrition Services for the North Kansas City School District and a board member of the Missouri School Nutrition Association. She says the food shortages that began last year are continuing this year.
A lot of those manufacturers just stopped producing their K-12 line. Some ramped back up this year. Some are saying they can't because of labor. So there are a lot of shorts that are going into the distributor and they can't even get what they need to serve us on top of their labor issues, on top of our labor issues.
Knuth says in addition to supply chain problems, the cost of food that is available to school districts has risen by 15% or more. A recent survey by the National School Nutrition Association found 75% of school meal programs cite higher costs as a significant challenge. The survey says only about half of school meal programs nationwide found increases in the reimbursement rate from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to be sufficient to cover those increased costs. Knuth says the food shortage issue is a complicated one that is not likely to improve much in the near future.
When we can't get something from one of the distributors, we try to get it from another distributor, or we try to get it direct shipped from the manufacturer, So that means that their, the previous sales that they had to us fluctuate substantially. And so the manufacturer doesn't know who to send our products to, right? But we have to try to get that food anyway. So it's a little bit of a mess, and we're definitely looking forward to when things calm down.
Knuth says, fortunately, the federal government has given schools some flexibility for school meal patterns that dictate what meals must contain and how they must be delivered. She adds the food supply challenges are coming at a time when school food service programs are facing staffing problems of their own. A recent school shooting in Michigan that left 4 students dead has once again brought focus to the issue of providing our students and staff with a safe learning environment. The founder of a group called Safe and Sound Schools, Michelle Gay, addressed the issue of school safety at the recent Safe Schools and Colleges Forum, sponsored by MSBA's Center for Education Safety. She lost her daughter on December 14th, 2012 in the Sandy Hook school tragedy. Gay told the audience it's essential that schools adopt a comprehensive approach to school safety.
One that includes mental and behavioral health resources and programs, our school counselors, our school psychs, our SEL programs, health and wellness, very much at the forefront right now, right? Our school nursing programs, school-based health clinics, making sure that kids are coming to school with full bellies and that we are reducing stress as much as we possibly can. The physical safety and security, obviously based on my story, you know what a priority that is for us. Culture, climate, and community that includes everybody, that brings everybody in and ensures that whoever you are, whatever your experiences are, you at least feel safe here in this building. You're all welcome here. Leadership, law, and policy, the guiding principles of any school safety program. And of course, the last cornerstone, operations and emergency management, where a lot of that day-to-day drilling, training, all of those procedures and plans fall.
The Safe and Sound Schools organization advocates for and provides research-based education, tool, and resources to ensure the safest possible learning environment for children and educators. The 2022 regular session of the Missouri Legislature convenes this month, and education bills are likely to be a major part of the legislative agenda this year. MSBA's priority for the 2022 session of the General Assembly include legislation to ensure a safe education environment for all children, funding to ensure adequate resources for all districts to meet state and federal standards, opposition to legislation moving school board elections from April to November and requiring school board candidates to run as a member of a political party, and legislation supporting the expansion of and access to high-capacity broadband internet services throughout Missouri. MSBA will keep you informed about legislative developments during the session through our weekly Legislative Voice newsletter, our daily updates on Twitter, through critical issue alerts, and through periodic webinars. And don't forget to register for MSBA's Legislative Forum set for March 7th in Jefferson City. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
I hope everyone gets this as I do every month. There's a lot of good information that you just presented to us, a lot of things we need to be aware of. The upcoming events, the Legislative Forum, I can't go to that. I hope that some of it can. We're usually very well represented there, at least we're there, along with Jennifer and others. The March 7th event down in Jeff City, I'll be going to that as our representative. If anybody else wants to go, that'd be great too. So, just another thing to learn and keep up to date with everything going on. Region 7 meeting, as it says here, it'll be March 28th, but I think it was scheduled to be in Riverview Gardens, but I'm not sure where it's going to be now, so stay tuned. As always, I mean, every week I'm probably getting a dozen different emails from MSBA and NSBA on bulletins, on making you aware of things, on webinars to keep us up to date on different things, from what's going on at Temple Hill to equity and a plethora of topics that we could learn from and keep up to date with things. So I would encourage everyone to open those emails up, take a few minutes and read them. If you see a topic or something that's of interest to you that you don't know as much about as you think you should, please schedule it. See if they can work around and see if they can tape it, send it to us, or something like that, so that we're up to date on everything that's going on. Hats off to Vanessa for going down to Jeff City and taking her time and learning more about these bills that are coming forth. I love to hear what you have to say about it. And with that, that's the end of my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Moving to 2.05, discussion of school reports. At this time, both the SSD Governing Council as well as the PAC have not met since December, so there is no report. Moving to the business items. 3.01, Police Chief discussion with Michael Smith, Director of Operations, and joined by Police Chief from the St. Anne, St. John, Jefferson Hills Police Department. Discuss the current memorandum of agreement.
So board members, tonight we're joined by Chief Griffin from Breckenridge Hills, along with Captain Hauser from St. Anne, and then Sergeant Miller from St. Anne as well. The others were not able to join with us. Thank you for being with us tonight. So board members, the purpose of this item is to provide an update on the school resource officer agreement that we have here in the Ritenour School District. So I'm going to speak a bit about the why behind the work. Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith, where he's going to speak on some of the details of the changes to the SRO agreement that you approved. All the work that we do is tied to our vision and to our mission of making sure that we're ensuring learning occurs in a supportive environment, enabling every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop knowledge and skills necessary for success in our diverse world. Everything we do, we make connections to our equity statement. Also, the key connection is treating everyone with dignity and respect by valuing individual perspectives and cultural diversity. So I'm going to speak about the plan of action. So board members, we created a plan of action in June of 2020, time of significant unrest across the nation. In this plan of action, there were a series of steps that we embarked upon. I'm going to share a couple of those. First is working towards the approval of the equity statement by the Board of Education, which you did in August, that August of 2020. That equity statement is something that would be revisited every year to make sure that it's applicable, that the language is appropriate for what we're trying to do, and that we're living the work. The second was addressing the mental models of staff that are serving our kids through ongoing equity training. The next is embedding cultural competencies into our teacher and staff evaluation process. Ms. Gilliam will be coming back to you along with members of the Cultural Competency Commission to share with you the outcome of that work that they've done over the course of the last year. That work that would be embedded into the evaluation document. So it's not just work that we're talking about, it's work that we're expecting, and there's a level of accountability to the work. Another strategy was expanding the grow your own pipeline of educators. We know that we have to have the best and brightest for every child that's in our classroom. There's been significant progress around the grow your own pipelines that we have in the district. Another strategy was conducting an equity audit of policy and curriculum. So you heard from our attorneys, there was also equity audit of curriculum to make sure that students can see themselves in our curriculum. And then one of the final steps that we are yet to complete is the creation of a performance scorecard. The board approved an equity policy, which outlined those areas where we had to ensure there was not disparate impact on children based on our work. There are teams coming together to finalize that performance scorecard. So we look forward to bringing that to you in the near future. One piece of the equity plan was reviewing our relationship with local law enforcement. So we work closely with St. Anne, work closely with Breckenridge Hills, with St. John, with Oberlin, with Woodson Terrace, Edmondson, North County Cooperative, all the law enforcement agencies. We happen to have SROs from a select number of those law enforcement agencies. So in the equity plan, we revised and updated our letter of agreement. We started with St. Anne first, then it expanded to St. John and to Breckenridge Hills. We looked and revised our restraint policies, and you were front and center on that work, board members, to make sure that we were being supportive of students, that we were being supportive of school climate, and being supportive of the community as well. And we also organized and planned shared professional learning for the SROs that serve our kids and all officers that push into our buildings to work with children. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Smith. Michael is the liaison between the law enforcement agencies, and he'll talk a little bit about some of the terms.
And Chief, Captain, and Sergeant Miller, I hope that you guys feel free to jump in at any time as I'm talking to give your 2 cents on the relationship that we all have. Yeah, so board members, you know, I'm very proud of the relationship that we share with our local law enforcement. St. Anne, St. John, and Breckenridge Hills provide SROs in our secondary schools. And you know, we're very proud of that relationship and the health and safety that provides in our schools. As far as the terms of the SRO agreements that you approved recently, and also back in 2020 with St. Anne, we've made a lot of progress with those agreements. So, you know, our meetings that we held once per semester, we've already held our meeting for this year. That was on December 2nd, and we were joined by our first responder leaders from all over the area. We also invite community fire to join us as well as the police departments from the area. It's very well attended. I think that's because we provide lunch. You know? So, but it also has a lot of really great discussion about issues in the community and how we work well together, and also opportunities that we have to continue to grow together. Would you like to speak on any of that?
Yeah, as far as working with Ritenour, the chief gymnast was a dare officer, an SRO, before me. And even before the community policing became such a hot topic as it is in the last year, he was always very pro community policing. And that's where dare and SROs can play. So I feel like the chief is ahead of the curve in that respect. And it's all about building positive relationships with the community. What better way to do that than SRO? So he really cherishes the positive interaction we have working with the school, all of you, all of the students and parents.
Officers being available for additional hours upon request. You know, of course, you know that officers, our SROs, attend our sporting events and other activities, and that is from all of the municipalities. We have great attendance from our police officers. To go along with that, also, Sergeant Miller joins me often. I personally do trainings with the buildings on intruder safety and intruder training. and Elliot Miller joins me on many of those trainings with the staff. And then, revising our restraint policy. Our restraint policy is, and the policy of the police departments are in line with laws forbidding chokeholds. That's against the law, and officers are trained that is part of what they are not to respond. In the event of full virtual instruction, our SROs would then shift to home visits, providing home visits to students. And that happened in 2020. And should we ever go back to full virtual, that would happen. And then organizing and providing anti-bias training. Evelyn Gilliam has worked very, very hard to set up those trainings. We held our first training for the SROs on December 13th, and it was great how it all worked out. Be giving you a little bit more detail about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith. And so board members, that training, as Mr. Smith had shared, first session was held. The next two sessions have just been recently scheduled for during the month of February. So it's Ms. Gilliam that's organizing the training along with Tabari Coleman. So we work with Tabari. You're familiar with Tabari. Tabari led the first session with the officers. A little bit about the learning outcomes of these sessions with Tabari and Evelyn. So developing opportunities to strengthen and build bridges between the officers and students. Understanding individual truths and supporting and opening ongoing dialogue. And then just talking through what is equity, what should it look like in the role of an SRO. And I will tell you in our schools, what I see is I see officers working very hard to build relationships with every student that they
The discussion, we discussed topics about origins of policing in the United States. There were connections between historical marginalization and the current climate and culture, and also an explanation and clarification of terminology centered around topics.
And so when we come back together again in February, the next two sessions, there'll be a total of 3 sessions. At the first one, the SRO shared ideas about how they believe they're perceived and how they want to be perceived. And what is it about the gap that exists there? What can we do to build a bridge between how we are perceived and how we want to be perceived? And then the SROs, the team also shared ideas around those bridges and what they can do to move closer to how they wish to be perceived, which is to be partners with children, partners with children's learning, and to have a positive relationship. Just a couple of pictures. The sessions were held here. I thought it was very real conversation. Sometimes when you always just dance around topics and you don't get real, there's really no change that takes place. I think we're starting in a very good place with the officers that serve our children, but I think we can always. I'm happy that it wasn't a situation where people were just being concerned about being isolated. Some real open conversation. I'm looking forward to deeper around this. So our purpose in bringing the officers in front of you tonight is just to give you an update on the SRO agreements and one to allow the officers an opportunity to share any perspective they wish to share.
Yeah, with SRO officer Mike Preston, he's at the Husky Academy, and we was the old chief and pulled out the SRO officer because we were short handed. And when I took over, my goal was to put an officer back into the school, with the school. And we lost Mike Preston, but then he decided to come back, and we brought him back up. And he's doing out there. You love his job.
As you say, he's at the Husky Academy, we heard Mr. Berry speaking. Sounds like you're doing a great job together.
And our ongoing partnership with St. Anne continues, I think, to be the model for all the agencies, got great relationships with all of the agencies. Appreciate the support from St. Anne. Appreciate the some time to come and have some face time. Thank you for all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Return to learning and design approval. Welcome Dr. Fitzgerald, Superintendent of Schools, to present current return to learning plans for education.
Thank you, board members. So board members, as you know, every 30 days, the return to learning plan, I'll make a presentation to you for your consideration. We do need to approve the return to learning plan every 30 days. I will take you through the work that we did to make this recommendation this night, January 13th. So the current status that we exist in right now, there's the debate continues to rage around the goal of the St. Louis County guidance and the status of the mask mandate in St. Louis County. The St. Louis County mask mandate was implemented by a vote of 4 to 3 of the county council. I came before you and shared with you the status of that Cole County decision and reinforced that decisions that carry the weight, not necessarily of law, but carry the weight of what we'll do in the district. It was reinforced that this approval of the return to learning plan by you is what we act on. The Cole County decision went into effect on the 22nd of December. The focus was not on school boards. The focus was on county health departments and the Department of Health and Senior Services. And the legal interpretation is that it may eliminate the ability of state level and county level departments to enforce guidelines around quarantine. Here's our current dashboard. Our current data on positives and quarantines. Currently, we do operate with a 10-day quarantine for close contacts, for those that have been determined to be a close contact with a positive individual. You can see across our district, the numbers are quite high. The numbers of positive staff and students, as well as the numbers of quarantine staff and students. This data is tracked every week. Our school health staff, our nurses in the buildings do an amazing job of maintaining this data. And then at the central office level, on the student services side, Ms. Hahn does a great job of tabulating this data. On the staff side, Dr. LaChance does a great job of maintaining and tabulating the data. So under our current return to learning plan, we quarantine based on contact tracing. So a close contact is defined as being within 3 to 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. Unvaccinated students are quarantined if determined to be a close contact. Vaccinated students are identified as a close contact. They quarantine if they become symptomatic. Now, what our data shows is that there is low level, what we continue to see is there's low level participation between students that are on quarantine and the 5 quarantine teachers that we have. We have 5 district teachers. Their sole purpose is to serve those students that are on quarantine. That at the elementary level, that is 2 hours per day. At the secondary level, that's 1 hour per day of check-in and support from those quarantine teachers. But what we see is of those students that are quarantined, and you can see that there is a large number of students that are quarantined, 225 at this point. We are not seeing all of those students or even 80% of those students checking in with those quarantine teachers on a regular basis. And so we modified back in December 9th to be exact, the return to learning plan. We modified that process, and at the start of second semester, we would be moving away from quarantines of close contacts and moving to isolation of symptomatic and positive students and staff. So this is what that looks like starting January 18th, which is Tuesday. the first day of second semester, positive students and staff members would be isolated from school. Symptomatic students and staff members isolate from school and are directed to seek guidance from a health professional. Non-symptomatic students and staff continue to attend school. So it's the expectation that if you are symptomatic, that you do not attend. Contact tracing in schools will be discontinued. We've seen that there's a low level evidence of spread in the school. Those students or staff members that are on quarantine, the number of positive cases that we end up getting from the quarantine students and staff, it is not zero. It does happen, but it is a relatively low level. The reality is there is a large amount of virus that's in the community right now, and we believe, in line with the CDC guidance, that we can move to isolations away from quarantines. We can continue to keep people as safe as possible, and we can impact in a positive way student learning. So, for your consideration and your approval tonight, we would be moving to be in line with the CDC process. CDC has changed their recommendations for isolation. We would be moving away from 10-day quarantines to 5-day isolation. If there is a symptomatic or a positive individual, they would be isolated for 5 days away from school. At the end of 5 days, if symptoms have subsided, masks would be worn for days 6 to 10, and those students and staff would be able to return to school. Symptomatic people would remain in isolation beyond day 5 if the symptoms are still present. There would be a temperature check of those people on isolation, students and staff, when they would return to school on day 6. Persons, that include students and staff with a temp above 100.4, they would remain in isolation at that point. Symptoms have not subsided, and they would not return to in-person learning. This new isolation process would be implemented starting Tuesday, the 18th of January, which is the first day of the second semester. Also, as an FYI, on the 19th, on Wednesday, with the leadership of Mr. Smith, Mr. Gray, Mr. Miller, Ms. Hahn, and others, we'll be holding another vaccination clinic. That will be the first time that the booster for ages 12 and up will be available through us to the community, or through our partners at SSM to the community. That's going to be from 3 to 8. So our first recommendation for your approval is the moving away from quarantines to isolation in line with the CDC recommendation of 5 days. Shared this information with the Return to Learning Committee on Monday. And you can see the data from those. Not all members of the committee shared their feedback, but we do a liker and give an opportunity to share verbal feedback beyond that. You can see that there's support from the Return to Learning Committee to moving to the CDC guidance, which is 5 days from 10 days of quarantine. However, we would be working for those persons that symptoms remain beyond day 5. Those persons would need to remain isolated from school. The current masking expectation, we are a mask mandatory district. We have been since the beginning of the pandemic. Mandatory masking is in place indoors. It's in place on buses, but that's through the National Transportation Safety Board. Any public bus, public train, same thing applies to school buses. It's mandatory masking on all buses. During athletic events, the athletes, while participating, do not wear masks during the sporting events. All staff members and students, regardless of vaccination status, They remain fully masked while indoors except when eating. That's the expectation in all of our schools. Your approval on December 9th is that we would move to a mask recommended environment when the positivity rate in St. Louis County is at 7% or below. The current positivity rate on Tuesday of this week in St. Louis County was 39.1%. Ms. Melly accurately stated the data as of today. It's at 38.5% positive in St. Louis County. So what you approved on December 9th is you approved the metric to identify the how we would move to a mask recommended or mask optional. You adopted a how as opposed to a when. The recommendation that comes to you this evening is that same recommendation. That when we are at a positivity rate in the county of 7% or below, then we would move to a mask recommended environment. Unfortunately, with the current rate of the surge, we're not at that point. Why did we go with the metric? This was the data that was shared last month. In the survey of the community, the feedback that we received, those people that said, no, I am not comfortable moving to mask optional, then the question was, at what point would you be comfortable? And it was shared that the vast majority of people that responded said, I don't know when I'll be comfortable. So the process in place of setting a metric, we're creating some structure around this move to mask recommended. When we are in a mask recommended environment, we'd be moving away from district level mandates. We'd be moving to individual buildings where when we're mask recommended, if there's a building that has 1% positive students, only that building would move back to a mandatory mask environment for a period of not less than 2 weeks. We've received feedback from the board that there can be different outcomes or different experiences within populations of people. And so the fact that we would be going with a building level trigger of 1% is an attempt to be respectful of that feedback. During that 1% mandatory masking would be back in place for a period of 2 weeks. And then after that point, we would return to a mask optional environment. In addition to the alignment with CDC moving to the isolation, in addition to maintaining the metric for moving to mask optional, we're recommending that athletics and activities they'll continue as they have all this school year. However, the experience is that it's impossible to socially distance during athletics and activities. So this is not only sporting events, this is also concerts and the like. The current status with the current rate spread, we're seeking to limit participation, not of the athletes or the performers, but of the spectators to work to try to keep people as safe as possible. You see this evening, we've got social distancing in place in the boardroom. We've set up room 214 for those persons that wish to be here tonight, but there's not space for them in the room. The meeting is being live streamed in 214, and there's extra space in the room over there for people to observe the meeting as well. So the recommendation is that we would be limiting the number of spectators and indoor athletics and activities. This would not apply to outdoor events. So knowing the return to learning plan is in effect for 30 days, the recommendation is that effective on Tuesday, the first day of second semester, at all athletic events and activities, spectators would be limited to 3 persons per participant. This would include either athletes or performers. They would be submitting names to athletics and activities, and we would be limiting the number of people coming in. This would apply for Ritenour as well as at an athletics event, whatever visiting school would be participating. Also, these events would be live streamed for those persons that wish to view it but not to come to the event. They can still follow along. This feedback was taken to the committee on Monday. Here are the results of those that chose to give their feedback. You can see there was one person that strongly disagreed to this action. You can see overwhelmingly 6 of the 7 supported moving this direction. So the return to learning plan with these changes are to you this evening for your approval, and I can answer any questions.
So by having only 2% for participants I know that as residents and activities that are hosted, a lot of the people who do go pay, and that money goes towards that money, other activities. And so do we have a way to replace any of that money that we may be using like to attend and give more money to go?
Yeah, good question, Janara. No. Moving to this in an effort to try to social distance to a greater extent, the amount of money at the gate would be reduced because we would have less people coming in.
Question for and choose why 1% in terms of coverage for the color it is.
Yeah, so 1%, if you look around at county school districts, every district has some type of a trigger where when they are in a mask optional environment, where they would go back to mask mandatory, and the triggers range. Generally, they're in the 2% range, but generally 2% it's of staff and students. The 1% trigger is staff, is only students in a building. So while districts may choose 1%, 2%, or 3%, I believe that we need to have a sensitive trigger. And I think 1% of students is a sensitive trigger, so that we want to get to a point where we can respect people's individual choices. But we also want to have some sensitivity when we start to see data moving in a direction that we can try to tamp down or to try to stop the spread.
Okay, that is for an individual building, correct?
Building by building, so at an elementary, Booter Elementary, they have 450 students. If there are 1% of those 450 students positive, then Booter would go back mask mandatory for a period of not less than 2 weeks. However, I want to be clear, at this point, within the return to learning plan, to get to the point where we would be mask optional, the rate in St. Louis County would be 7%.
For a building, it would be like 45 students.
Correct.
So are we putting the quarantine teacher that we have placed? What are we doing with the quarantine teachers? If we're not quarantining unless they are actually positive.
So we would still need staff to serve those students that are in isolation, because we will still have students that are in isolation, whether they be positive or whether they be symptomatic. We will still maintain some teachers to serve those students who will be away from school. But we will also, we know that staffing of classrooms and buildings is a real challenge right now. We'll look at the data. If you approve this, we'll look at the first several weeks of data to identify how many of those teachers that we need to serve the students in isolation. And we'll think through how the remaining teachers can serve kids in the district.
And then, on the indoor athletics and activities, everything else is kind of in order, and would change. So my question would be, is that, like, we're going to really review that every 30 days to say, now our numbers are down below 7%, so we would allow more than 3 full-in per person.
Yeah, so,
We don't have a number to that. So I was just wondering if that's just.
yeah, so the purpose, the why behind that is season by season. And when we get into spring, I'm not sure of an indoor sport that we have in spring. So when we're outside, there's no expectation of masking outside. And so if you approve, the limitation, yeah. So if it's a softball game, if it's soccer, there's no limitation outdoors. This is only indoors. And if you approve it tonight, it would be only for the 30 days. So it would be only till the next time we come to you with a February business meeting, which is the 10th of February. We'll be monitoring data all along. And if we see declines in positivity rate and the spread, then we would not be recommending that.
You and I talked a lot about this, and at the last board meeting, guys, for my opinion and such like that. Sitting here listening to all this, one thing that came to mind is, and I'm one of those that always watches the news, reads the news, and tries to get as much information as I can from everywhere in the world. And the thought came to mind is to not change your mind on opinion, give it different data, and give it more data is closed-minded. And I don't want to be that way. Okay, given more information, watching the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock news. I don't know all the science behind all this, but I know one thing for sure. And we've said it a million times in this boardroom. The best person to teach our children is the teacher for that classroom. I will not say that our superintendent was probably a stellar first grade teacher. I'll say that I heard that our CFO is a great guy teaching the days of the week. I look forward to the YouTube video. But still, as Christina and her group would say, they're the professionals. They're the ones that are best to teach our students. And if we can't have them in our classrooms, then are we truly giving our students the best education possible? People can argue until the cows come home. Are these masks worth wearing? Are they doing harm? Are they not doing? I don't know. But I will say if it gives our teachers, our staff, our students the confidence to show up at the door of our school, then by God, that's what I want. And with that, I would like to make the motion that we approve the return to learning plan as presented this night by our superintendent. Absolutely.
Thomas? Yes. Senator Smith? Lisa Carter Jones? She says she votes yes. And then waiting on Mrs. Belgreco.
Can't tell. I can only see the number of people, but I can't see individuals.
And I vote yes. Still pending, still also have to wait on Belgreco. because I haven't seen it. She's read it, but allergies, not always the best. We haven't heard anything.
Shall be the first majority vote. This is correct.
Commission, I can read the statement. Based on, so this is over. Based on science showing the current mass do not help, and 1% is too low to have all kids continue wearing them. I don't know. But do you like the rest, do you like the rest of the plan? What that is supposed to be.
Thank
you. Okay. Please, Shavis Arena contract extension. Mr. Michael Smith, Director of Operations, will present the Shavis Arena contract extension to 2024.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
All right, so graduation ceremonies for 2022 are scheduled for 6:00 p.m. on Saturday, June 4th, 2022 at Shavis Arena. June 4th is the Saturday after Memorial Day, and that's when we traditionally hold Ritenour graduations. Because deposits were made in the past, we have a $7,000 credit right now with Shavis, and that will be applied to the 2022 graduation costs. Last year, you approved extending our contract with Shavis to the class of 2023. And in order to reserve the venue for the class of 2024, I'm requesting that the board allow us to hold the date of Saturday, June 1st, 2024, the Saturday immediately following the church.
So board members, we're excited to return to Shavis. We've been away from Shavis for 2 years. We know that traditions are important in this district, and I think we've established the tradition of graduating at Shavis. Mr. Smith has worked to maintain that same day, the Saturday following Memorial Day, for Shavis, and I'm happy to hear that Mr. Smith has made sure that when we moved away from Shavis for the last 2 years, it was not a situation where all those funds were lost. So I appreciate that.
Madam President, I move that we approve the Shavis Arena contract extension to June 1st, 2024, as presented.
Ms. Lawrence? Yes. Ms. Enriquez? Yes. Lisa asked the question, will there be a limit on the number of people?
I have not been informed on the number of people at Shavis.
We will be subject, because Shavis is in St. Louis City, we will be subject to the St. Louis City guidelines for COVID, whatever they are.
Ms. Dunn votes yes. And Ms. Alberto also votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to stay right there.
Okay, I will.
Let's move to board of appointing proposal update, Mr. Michael Smith.
Thank you. As you know, Willow maintains facilities help the district meet the mission and vision. Our facilities should provide the best physical environment for learning to occur, and all district schools should provide consistent and equitable environments. As you know, tuck pointing is the process of removing and replacing damaged mortar with bricks.
Thanks to the passing of Proposition S, one of the planned projects was to provide tuck pointing at the Ritenour facility. You should know that most buildings have never been tuck pointed. That maintenance has been deferred. Tuck pointing that has occurred over time has just been as needed, and not very much. So just going building by building, Booter will require significant work, mainly on the walls near entrances. You can see a picture of a lintel there at the top of the window that's sagging. That will also be here. Don't pay attention to the numbers that are there. I took these pictures straight from our bid documents, just so you can see the same pictures that the contractors. Also at Booter, you can see some stairs that are in the back of the building that need to be repaired. That's just some of the work that needs to be done. Iceland also needs extensive tuck pointing and lintel work. Kratz will need extensive tuck pointing. You can see the right-hand picture shows some significant cracking. There's some additional pictures of Kratz and where mortar is coming apart and pressing. Marion will require moderate tuck pointing, not as much as the other schools that I've mentioned. Marvin will also require moderate tuck pointing. Wyland is actually in very good shape. The brick is in really good shape. However, the window sills are going to be Cake will require significant tuck pointing and brick replacement. Ritenour Middle School will also require significant tuck pointing, and there's an alternate to rebuild a damaged wall. That brick would be reused. You can see the alternate down there at the bottom left, but that wall needs to be rebuilt because it's starting to. And Ritenour High School will also require significant tuck pointing and sealing, and part of the work is going to be repairing the front feature. Last year, we put a tuck pointing out to bid, and RFP was put out, but we only had one bidder, and we were not comfortable approving the work from just one bidder. So we revised the RFP, and that went out in December. At the December RFP, we had 8 contractors that requested documents. 3 of those contractors submitted bids on January 6th. Here's the pricing that was submitted. I highlighted the lowest bid for each of the schools. And if the lowest bids were to be accepted, the total cost would be $1,270,630. That is correct. They chose not to bid on those. You'll notice Marion is an outlier. It's $45,412. The lowest than the others. That was submitted by a company that is a father and son that both attended Marion, and the grandchild is also scheduled to attend Marion. And so I was told they wanted to bid out of this down.
That's why they did one school.
That's right. One school. Correct. If the lowest bids are accepted, you can see the cost that I mentioned. We originally budgeted $600,000, and so that's about $670,000 over what we had originally projected for tuck pointing. So if approved, we would take that $670,000 from our process HVAC budget, which we believe we still would be able to get the HVAC work done that we need to get done
subpointing has been deferred.
Board members, if you remember last year, we brought a subpointing recommendation to you at this time. And based on the bids that came back, we pushed it back a year and went back out. And so then thinking that potentially the number of bidders and prices would go down, and that's not what we're realizing.
Historically, this high, except for
It is.
Is that typical, or is that, supply chain issues and material prices are going up, so I don't know if it's partly because of that, or if it's just.
I believe it's partly because of that. I also believe it's supply and demand, the demand for the work is high.
So much of subpointing is labor.
Yeah, we have labor, so I have interested office redone.
Right.
And it's expensive, just with the mortar on the side, and it's also very messy. So my next question was, is this something that we're going to be doing during the summertime?
The plan is to do it during times and days when students are not.
Yeah. It's definitely, Ms. Alberto, how did they arrive at this 600,000 budget?
We, that was an educated guess that we had made, that this was based on a facility study that was completed by our architects. This would have been back in 2017, 2000. Based on their numbers.
So it was already low. I'm sorry. It was low compared to today's environment.
That is correct.
Okay. And, it is what it is. I mean, tuck pointing is not one of those grand and glorious things. It's not it's not flashy. It's not like a new sign out at St. Thomas Rock Road to tell you who's graduating high school, or something like that. But, these buildings are also going to be here forever. And if we don't take care of them now, and we have not done any kind of tuck pointing since I've been on this board, and I have seen it get progressively worse, especially at Booter and Jake and Middle. And the entrance, if we don't do anything to the entrance of the high school up there, it's going to be beyond repair. We're going to have to tear it all out. We know how much that costs. So it's not anything except regular maintenance, and as Mike said, we prefer it, we push it off, we pay for more important things, but right now, like it or not, it's time to pay the basic.
No, I'm not a tuck pointing expert.
You don't want to be.
Is there, do they have some sort of, not people that are like, warranty? I mean, if something, how long is it supposed to last? How many do sort of routine, just, or.
Right, we are currently vetting the companies, and we're working on the.
That's gonna be my question, is what do we know about these companies? Have we worked with any of them in any other aspect, or?
We have
did we
not.
reach out to any of the other, like, did they do other schools or areas or something like that?
Our architect, Doug Duva, and I are current. Those questions.
Look forward to hearing your report on them next month.
I will be making a recommendation in February. Of course, we got a little bit more information.
Questions from Ms. Alberto, short tiny labs. How will that impact the HVAC legislative process?
So it would reduce the broadcast budget for HVAC, but we believe we can get the needed HVAC done with that reduction.
Okay, and one of my other questions, I think it's interesting, because I know that each building is in a different municipality, and I know we are in Overland. When you do the tuck pointing, you have to have a way of keeping the sand from going into the air. Do you know if that's something that they've kind of accommodated? needed, or that they're gonna be, depends on where the buildings are?
It would depend on that, and the contractor would be responsible.
Okay, I was just curious, because that was something new for me to done it. It does increase the cost.
Yeah, the contractor would be responsible for all, local codes found in all.
And so board members bids, bid opening was a week ago. And so wanted to get this in front of you tonight to answer questions. Mr. Smith and the team are still doing work to vet these contractors. We hope to do a special meeting after the February work session. It's February 3rd, where we can bring to you the formal recommendation for your.
Is it closed?
That's
Okay, I was just making sure like, somebody doesn't have that.
correct. Yeah, these are the.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Five, Missouri Capital Asset Advantage Treasury, or MOCAP. Mr. White, Chief Financial Officer, will present the MOCAP resolution to the board of education.
And first grade teacher.
Yes.
First grade virtual.
Oh, virtual.
Oh, yes, I told everyone I felt incapable twice. I'm not trained as a teacher, and my Zoom skills were not good enough to follow the regular teacher's wonderful plans that she laid out, so. But we got through it, and the kids were good. And one parent helped me very much. Oh, wow. It was quite the experience, I must say. So really, yes, I'm going to talk about it's an investment cooperative. As you know, we use St. John's Bank for probably 95% of our banking services. They're a fantastic partner here in the community. But we also utilize MOSA, which is Missouri's Securities Investment Program. That was created in 1991. That is another investment cooperative. And we use that to put our excess cash because it earns a slightly higher rate of interest than we can earn at St. John's. So MOCAP was created in 2020. Again, it's another investment cooperative created under the statutes of Missouri, and a lot of districts and local government units are allowed to invest in it. And right now it's paying a slightly higher rate of return than MOSA. So I'm just asking for the board to approve the resolution so we can participate in the MOCAP program, which gives us another investment option. And hopefully we can earn a little more return on our excess cash and create as much resources as we can in this. But I'll answer any questions.
We'll still be working with St. John's Bank as we are right now.
Absolutely. If you remember, we go out to bid for a depository every 5 years by statute. St. John's continually runs that. They basically, they don't charge us for anything. So that's why I said they're a fantastic partner. We do 95% of our banking, all our check writing, all our transfers. That will not change. This is just another place we can invest our excess.
Sounds good to me.
Any other questions?
I move that we approve the resolution to participate in the MOCAP and authorize all necessary signatures needed as presented.
Second. Are there any additional risks to this investment option?
Not any more risk than what it's in MOSA. So again, it's basically we own one, every dollar is for one share of the cooperative. So there's no more risk than investing in MOSA, which is where probably 90% of our excess cash is right.
Say something about the same thing. The risk level and still using St. John's. So,
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. And Mrs. Pinbar? Yes. Lisa approves resolution, so yes. Yes, from Ms. Greco, and yes for myself. Thank you so much. Moving on to 3.06, personnel recommendations. Dr. Mike Chance, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Good evening, Dr. Williams.
I'm here to present personnel items 1 through 38, and I'm open to any comments or questions you may have. Ultimately, I consider approval.
Are we getting the amount of retirement requests that we had anticipated? Is this along the lines of what we were?
We are seeing an increase at this time of year, and so far we believe several people that are inquiring about it, and in the process of considering their options, but it's much sooner than we normally would. I believe all based on the previous that went into effect this year, which impact the retirement benefits or related to unused sick leave.
Yeah, that was the intent. I think we're seeing the impact, the positive impact of what we intended, which is the decision to retire by a teacher is a very tough decision. And what we've seen going back some years is there were a number of teachers that were 98% certain that they were going to be retiring. They just couldn't turn in a letter. So that's why the number of separations with the vast majority of them, being retirements tonight. I think because of that change, we're seeing a positive impact that is causing people to make that decision earlier, which will help us right at the start.
But we haven't seen an uptick from what we anticipated. I know you guys are there and anticipate we should have 10 or 15 people retire this year. Is it more than we thought it would happen? Or?
I think it's just earlier at this point. I don't know if we have an increase in the number of separations. I don't know that it's an increase in the number of retirements. Although knowing with the challenge, just how challenging teaching during the pandemic has been, yeah, would not be surprised if we receive more retirements and more full separations.
I think the potential retirees later in the year, now typically we would be seeing this number in May. It's come to us in late May, when it's more difficult to recruit and hire at that time. But those who may not have 6 days available to create a benefit every time, their motivation to tell us early is not there, so they can wait until they're there.
With the high school plan, so they're just waiting to fill 1 counseling position and then 2 student support specialists. They fill the other 4 positions. There's the other 6 positions.
I will say that those, like somebody said, they do not make the decision every time. Like it's a lot of thought, and there's a lot of consultation and discussion.
I don't know if anyone makes the decision one day that I'm just going to walk away from it. Hopefully a well-paying good job that I have and decide I have to be there one day. That's a hard decision for anyone. I know that the teachers especially get connected with the students, get connected
with everything that's going on, and I'm very impressed. Very impressed with their grit. So, good for them on this one and the past several months, years. Very good.
Madam President, I'd like to move that we accept personnel recommendations 1 through 38 as presented. this time.
I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I vote yes. Mark says yes. Ms. Gilberto says yes. Ms. Clifford Jones also says yes. And Penny is on. She goes also yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's all right.
3.07. Board member comments.
Well, I guess some good time. Yeah, that's,
Absolutely.
So I went to Jeff City on Tuesday. I don't know all about it. I did submit a statement for bills just to regulate how damaging I felt like those bills were going to be. I'll try to give you more on that. So it was a hearing. It started at 8. They stopped at 10, so I couldn't stay the whole time. I had to leave at 10 and then went to recess. But I really think we need to give this a lot more attention and really work with our partners over at MSBA who are also, their opposition for some of the bills and are monitoring some of the other ones. But some of the things that I heard were actually just kind of like startling to hear and to hear our legislators talk about our classrooms the way that they were. I will say that there was, I felt like the committee itself was actually pretty thoughtful as well in their engagement. Most of them were very thoughtful and asked specific questions around like what are parents not allowed to do. So the 3 bills, so there was one around the Parents' Bill of Rights, is what it's like what the title is, and then there's the critical race theory curriculum, and then there's the school board bill. And so the big sort of issue around the Parents' Bill of Rights is this notion that there's no trust, that it's about trust with parents and schools. And so, that conversation kind of got a lot of back and forth from, again, the committee members that were there, just asking like, what are parents not, the wording was much too broad, because they felt like that would mean that parents could just come in and just observe a teacher all day long. Like, that was a very, not just intrusive, but it could be very distracting, like even now I'm like, I can't focus very well. So that would be really distracting to teachers or other students trying to learn. So we kind of go against that. So there was that. There was lots of other conversation again around the wording of it all. It's very broad. A lot of the people that were already plenty of open communication between parents and schools and teachers and things like that. So that was one. Then there was a quote that I just had to write down, and I was like, oh my gosh. But he said, this isn't about, the classroom is not a place to have students. So our students should not be bringing activism to the classroom. He said, social transformation is not the point of the classroom. The point of the classroom is to produce well-educated kids. So that just did not sit well with me, because if we heard anything tonight with the International Welcome Center, with the students that we saw tonight, we are not just a changing society and changing the world all around, but I'm sorry, the current world that we live in, where, we don't have adequate resources. Even we've talked about this before, like the food insecurity in different parts of our own community. That's not the kind of, I would hope that we would want more social change in that aspect. So again, that was just really kind of startling to hear that that's sort of the notion that the people who have took the bill up. And this idea that we just kind of produce children and put them out into the world to produce. And I hope, and I think through our equity statement and our vision statement, our mission statement, we want to create thoughtful leaders in the world. Not just go in and check the box. No, so yeah, and then there was just a few other kind of things, but do you have any questions? I don't know if that was helpful at all.
No, I'm glad that you went. Thank you so much for representing us so that we can kind of know what's going on.
And I think too, at the LAC meeting that we had with Senator Jill, she was saying there was like a bipartisan group of all of the women legislators. And so they all came together and one on the book tour to show this book around, girls can do this too, and that kind of thing. And that kind of curriculum would even not be allowed under these bills. So again, it's just, I think we should probably pay attention to it and just make sure that we can keep an equitable environment for all of our students, be able to embrace their identities, their cultures, and what's meaningful as well. So. The book was called PTN2. Yeah, it was written by all of our Missouri senators. Yeah. Lake Missouri. Yes. Also, fun fact, the 1470 bill there had the most, it broke the record for the most written testimonies and presence there in the hearing. So I thought that was great.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
And they didn't say like in favor or opposition, but just in general, it had the most testimony kind of style. So that's wonderful,
So board members, this Jefferson City, it's the education bills that started so much earlier this year. The very beginning of the session, education right out of the box. I have a superintendent intern right now. Her name is Maggie Meisinger. And so she's at school, she's finishing her doctorate, looking towards the superintendency. And her work here in the district is to track those three bills because there's going to be a lot happening. The bills have not been voted on in committee yet, but that's likely to be happening here in the future. So Maggie was tracking that day to day, and she'll share the updates when we have our LSC meeting. Right.
Even with our COVID problems and all these shortage of labor and everything, our school district is still coming together to do I mean, we can stand on the rooftop and shout that we're still doing that. We're still fulfilling our equity statement. We're still doing everything, taking care of this. And that's no small comment, and it's a compliment to everyone here. And I know, I mean, a little fun and white teaching and everything, but when you get our CFO to come out of his office and take on the role that is so foreign to him as a teacher, I mean, everyone's pulling in the same way. Everyone's working toward that goal, and compliments to everyone. I mean, I don't know, can ever
was just basically talking about like the involvement of the community and how much the community actually, you know, embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion in their, not just fulfilling with their day-to-day work. And so a part of me wanted to be like, you know, it's one of the lectures, and it's like, see if every district was like, oh, everyone needs to be talking about some of this stuff. And I was like,
And the diversity in our school districts is the diversity in our community. And that's something to be celebrated as well. You know, it's having different festivals to celebrate our different ethnicities and backgrounds and everything. That makes us stronger. It doesn't make us weaker. It doesn't make us strangers. Go out and embrace it. Celebrate with them. Learn something about them. The greatest thing I think we've done in the last 5 years is have the International Welcome Center. We've done a lot of good things. And I think that has just, it's grown, and God knows I'd love to see it double again. I'd love to see them just bust out at the seams, because that's showing us the resiliency of our whole area. And I wanted to say earlier when the police chief were here, I live in, I'm a citizen. I live in the city of St. Anne. But my community is the Ritenour School District. I don't stay in St. Anne. I'm in Oakland, and Breckenridge Hills, and St. John's, and Charlotte. That's my neighborhood. Those are my neighbors. And I feel like if we can take care of all of our neighbors, the ones that can't speak English when they come here, and the ones that can, it makes our whole community stronger. And I'm just, every time I hear about the International Welcome Center, I think, how can we help them out? How can we do more? How can we get more people there? I just would love to see that it grows.
For a wonderful country. Because during the Christmas holidays, my daughter got a chance to go over there and volunteer. And they can always have more volunteers to help. It is an absolutely wonderful way to give back to our community, within our community. There's so much to do there. It's amazing. They are wonderful people that are there, that are helping our community to be able to, especially during the holidays. I get to see them every single day during the week when I'm working, looking over and waiting over at them. And so one of the things I know with her being in National Honor Society, our students need to have volunteer hours, and they can't go into the schools necessarily to do the tutoring. And it was a wonderful way for her to really see the wonderful things that we do. So I always want to recommend to anybody, they need help to be able to get our community so that they have food in their bellies and in their homes. So it's a wonderful plug for a wonderful organization.
Right, one important question. Our finals. All right.
And we aced them, right?
I'll take my next one tomorrow, but hopefully we get.
Right.
I know my friends are saying that they're really easy because finals right now can be affected by grades because of COVID. They can only grade your grade, not over it. So what people are mostly been doing is like, I'm at a beat. So make it a hate. Right. Yep. So everybody mostly focusing on just level in the grade. So at least from the senior perspective, I know that a lot of us are we're just like, might as well be that 3.5 GPA while I got G. So I'm not going to school like, oh man, I'm ready to go. But it's fun day. So glad to hear. Thank you. That's all I got. All right. Any other comments? Consent agenda.
Madam President, I would like to move that we approve consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.04.
Second. All right. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloan? Yes. Yes. I will also vote yes. And Ms. Glover Jones also votes yes. Okay. So moving to final closed session. Motion to reconvene in closed session for things